I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite conferences, obviously ASCO. It's coming up pretty quickly here, and I know we're strategically working with a lot of clients to really map out a lot of strategies. And then obviously I know I've been working with a lot of clients even since November of last year. And the people that are watching this, obviously we're focused on ASCO, but if there's other major conferences that you have, a lot of the tactics and strategies that we're talking about, Kelley and I are talking about today, can be leveraged for other major trade shows, major conferences that you're maybe planning for. So again, ASCO is coming up pretty quickly here, May 31st. I know, Kelley, you just finally booked your hotel. I had a calendar invite to remind me to get mine booked. So I ended up booking that a few months ago, but excited to talk specifically about, again, ASCO. And, obviously there's a lot of things that are happening at ASCO, cancer research, drug development, obviously, new test options that are out there, poster presentations, regular presentations, keynotes, and definitely excited about it. What are some of the things you're excited about ASCO this year?
I always like secreting myself in some of the sessions because I'm always drawn to it. It's such a passion of mine, oncology, that I'm the one that's secreting myself in one of those sessions, and sometimes only getting every third word that I'm looking up. But I love getting in some of the sessions. I also like the patient advocacy that goes on there. Just like AACR, it's one of those that really does a nice job of really bringing together a lot of patient advocacy, as well as on the HCP side.
Absolutely. And, today we're going to get into a lot of different digital and video strategies and tactics that we've been leveraging for clients, obviously at ASCO and other major conferences. And the great thing about ASCO, specifically for our video team, we're an approved vendor of McCormick Place. It's kind of our second home. So our video crews there in and out, not only for ASCO, but some other major trade shows and conferences. So I know we've got the green, I think it is, or I can't remember what color it is, but we've got the green badge that we can get through McCormick Place, which is great. So I know people are joining right now. Kelley, you've got looks like 13 people or so on, more people are joining. I thought it might be helpful just to go through real quick a little bit more about our background here at DigiVid Bio.
Yeah, great. So just a little background. So we're a digital marketing agency, but we're exclusively focused on the healthcare, life science, and med tech area. And over the years, one of the things that we've really honed in is really how to maximize your conference presence. Not all conferences are alike. Sometimes you have the ASCOs of the world, the Super Bowl of Oncology, as we like to refer to it. But many times you'll have these conferences where you just have important data being released, or maybe it's a new product launch. So we've really, over the years, come up with great strategies and tactics to really help you stand out and elevate, and also really help you amplify what you're doing. And, one of the things we understand is post-conference is king. Many times it's not just about being there, but how can you maximize your badge scans? How can you maximize your presence there to be able to really have an impact and close new prospects? And,
and I think...
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to piggyback off that because it's, we work with a lot of early stage startups to fully commercialized, and the tactics that we're going to go through today for both video and digital help amplify a lot of the things on early stage startup or fully commercialized, because that's the beautiful thing about both digital and video. And there's a lot of challenges, right? That a lot of our clients, a lot of conversations that we're having, and this started long before the pandemic, right? When it comes to just the landscape and trying to reach medical oncologists, or, if you're watching this and you're trying to reach other niche HCPs, we get it, right? The challenge is real. It's more challenging now than ever for the sales team to get into the physician's office. And a lot of the tactics that we're going to go through today will help amplify not only what the sales team's doing, obviously, with sales enablement. We're going to talk about video. We're going to talk about digital tactics that will be able to show reports which physician is showing the most interest, that the marketing team obviously can share with the sales team, which is great. And again, that's the challenge, right? It's not all physicians want a sales rep to come into the office. The other thing when it comes to challenges, and I know you've heard a lot of this too, Kelley, is, conference rates, ASCO, right? The price is not going down, right? They're going up. And it's not a matter of, if you need to go, it's a matter of how you can amplify a lot of the things, again, that we'll talk about today and squeeze out more ROI. Because, the other thing that's a challenge, and I know you're going to talk about it here too, Kelley, is like social media. Like, what's the landscape of social media right now with the medical oncologist and just regular oncologists?
Great question. So one thing we keep hearing over and over is social media from an organic standpoint just isn't producing the results. But the good news is that people can leverage social media with a little bit of paid spend, and we can even do it getting pretty granular with NPI targeting as well with social media. And that's a big area. Just over and over, we keep hearing clients say, I can't just throw up some posts anymore. I now need to be more strategic, and I maybe need to put a little spend behind that social media to really get the impact and the results they're looking for. And I'll also just kind of talk about webinars a little bit. So we keep hearing over and over that webinars just aren't as effective as they used to. And I think there's a lot of saturation with webinars. You can get people to sign up, but because people are so damn busy, so often what they're doing is checking the box, and they want to get that on-demand recording after, because they couldn't align with when that actual live webinar was. So, but what we're hearing though is people get that on demand, and then they're not going back and actually viewing it. So it's getting harder and harder to make an impact with webinars.
Absolutely. And again, that's why we're having this LinkedIn Live. We're going to talk about digital. We're going to talk about, and Kelley, you mentioned it here a little bit, which is great, because we're going to talk about NPI numbers, national provider identifiers. We're going to talk about billing codes and how you can leverage that. We're also going to talk specifically about different video tactics as well. And it kind of teed it up here on this slide for me, but specifically, let's say right now, and again, we're focusing on ASCO, but if there's some other major conferences, trade shows that are a bigger opportunity for you, a lot of the things that we're going to discuss today can be applied to other conferences and trade shows. And if you've got a comment or a question, we've got Duvani on our team. He's one of our marketing specialists that's monitoring the chat feature, the comment feature here on LinkedIn Live. So if you have a burning question, feel free to drop it in the comment section. Or if you want to hold that question and reach out to Kelley or myself after this LinkedIn Live, that's totally fine. But again, we're going to talk through strategies specifically to help amplify what you're doing. So if you have a product launch, if you've got data that you're releasing, if you've got abstract, if you're just got a major announcement, right, we're going to talk about ways to help amplify that. Obviously, having a booth at ASCO is a major expense. So we're going to help and showcase different ways that you can help drive additional booth traffic. And then obviously, to your point, Kelley, talking about the holy grail of post-conference follow-up. What are some of the strategic things that we're doing with clients to help with that? And then we kind of teed it up a little bit too, is video. We're going to talk about the superpower of video and how you can capture strategic video footage, again, not only at ASCO, but other conferences and trade shows. And then just the last couple quick things here, and we'll definitely get into it, is using NPI numbers, how our data, we've got a couple different data partners that we leverage to help mine that information, that data to reach physicians online digitally. I know it sounds kind of creepy, right, Kelley? Like we're talking about NPI numbers, right? But as marketers, we're kind of all creepers, right? And if you want to go down the rabbit hole specifically about national provider identifiers and billing codes, the last two actually previous LinkedIn Lives, Sean, our data guy, he went down the rabbit hole talking a lot about that. We'll discuss it at a high level here, but if you want to learn more, we'll put that in the comment section as well. And then just the last thing is, the great thing about this NPI number, the campaigns that we're actively leveraging and using, is you can get a report every single month that shows which physician saw your ad, clicked on your ad. So as a marketer, right, that's great to be able to turn those sales leads into more qualified leads, right? And we've got the data to be able to show that. So Kelley, what are we going to talk about here when it comes to advanced targeting? Obviously, the people that are watching this right now, maybe like really in planning mode for ASCO right now, are just the final steps. We know it's obviously happening here in the next couple months, but what's this first, and I'm going to tee it up here, but what's the first tactic digitally that we're going to talk about?
So one of the tactics that doesn't get used enough is the geofencing because it has very little waste. And it's based on, when we put together a campaign, it's based on the number of attendees. So you get a really good coverage of your attendees that you're looking to make an impact on.
Yeah. What I love about this too, there is a certain percentage of waste, and that's not the part I love about it. But it's specifically to that conference, and it's a little bit different than the NPI targeting, because the NPI targeting that we'll talk about a little bit later is very specific. It's based on a unique identifier. This is different, where it's based on your mobile phone. Right. We all have smartphones. As we go through McCormick Place. So the way it actually works here, I'll put it up on the screen. So it's a digital geofence. So we put it around McCormick Place. We can also put it around all the headquarters, all the hotels, right? The headquarter hotels in Chicago. And I know there's a bunch of them. We can do them at main hotels. We can do them at other hotels too, but we really want to focus as much as possible on McCormick Place. So the way it works, if you're not familiar with it, as your mobile phone, it's based on location. So most people, I don't know what the percentage is, it's really high. It's like 98, 99% have their location-based services available, because you're checking your weather, right? You're checking, you might be getting an Uber, you might be getting a Lyft, right? So all those are available. So we're able to target within 10 feet if you're at the McCormick Place or not, which is great. So what we're doing during the conference is really reinforcing the things that you might already be doing. Again, this is the amplification strategy. It's a way to stand out. So if you have poster presentations, if you've got data, if you've got a product theater, right, you want to stand out. And we'll talk specifically how it works a little bit more, but this is the strategy behind it is you're trying to derive more booth traffic. And then this is the great thing about it that I mentioned earlier. This is what I love about the geofencing is there's so much going on during ASCO. I mean, there's 30,000 people, right? People have breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and obviously going to different booths and different meetings. What I love about this is the post-conference tactic. So 30 days after ASCO, again, we've got the mobile phone IDs. We know who was there. We can serve a different ad to them post ASCO, right? Post conference, 30 days afterwards. So it's a great way to stand out, and you get that frequency, right? Because we're driving the traffic. Let's say if you have a major announcement, or even you have a press release after ASCO that you announced, right? It's a great way to stand out 30 days afterwards. What are your thoughts on that 30-day post-conference follow-up, Kelley?
Oh, that's the magic of the geofencing, in my opinion. The post 30-day retargeting is really where I think the rubber hits the road. It is quite impactful, and it really helps you stand out. Think about when you finish, when you go home after a conference and you start getting all of these emails in your inbox. This is a really great way to really stand out.
Right. And at a high level, basically it's going through, and a lot of times we get these questions, Kelley, is, well, how does it, like, what websites is it on? Like, how does it kind of work? And it's kind of, think of it as your normal media consumption. So sports, news, weather, finance. And Kelley, I know you travel a lot. You're on a lot of travel sites, right? So as a medical oncologist or an oncologist, right, they're going to a lot of these different sites too during the actual conference, right? And so if they're checking the stock market, if they're checking sports scores, maybe if they're checking to book another flight somewhere else, like they're navigating these different lifestyle sites. What I love about this too is it's cross device. Kelley, I don't know about you, but I have about 4 different devices that I toggle with, and typically we start on the mobile phone device because that's where we get it, but it's cross screen, right? So if you have a laptop, desktop, the technology is sophisticated enough to be able to do cross device as most people kind of navigate online. And this is a case study. Time is kind of limited, Kelley, and I know we're not going to get into this geofencing case study, but if you're watching now, you've got some interest, you want to learn more about specifically this case study, Kelley and I are happy to email it to you. Just, obviously connect with us here on LinkedIn, or if you've got our email address and you want to see this geofencing case study, feel free to reach out to us, Kelley or I, and we'll get that to you. Hey, Kelley, before we get into the next topic, is there anything else you want to mention about geofencing?
Just that it gives you a kind of a continuing dialogue, and you change up your creative to really talk to the people who are seeing your ads in the space. So for instance, if you're running some, when you're talking about geofencing at the conference, you're going to have a different message than what you're going to have post. And it's really very effective.
Love it. Love it. So speaking of effective and kind of unique and standing out, right? These are amplification strategies to help amplify what you're doing already. One of the things, and we've all seen this before, those screens, right? Those digital screens that come right when you walk out of McCormick Place, or if you're in San Diego or San Francisco, any of the major cities have these. It's called digital out of home. We've all seen them before, right? Those are the billboards, the LED screens, the digital signage. Typically it's video. So you can see a map. I know it's really tiny on this screen, but again, if you've got some interest and you want to learn more about digital out of home, we can send this to you. The screenshot that's really teeny tiny on here is basically Chicago. It's downtown Chicago. It's McCormick Place. So we can get very specific on which screens we can run this. So let's say, for example, you have a product theater, you've got data, you've got a new test. This is a great way to stand out, and it's much more cost effective than trying to advertise directly with ASCO, right? Kelley, you and I have discussed a lot of strategic things way back at the end of last year. I know it, like just as an example, if you wanted to advertise on ASCO's main website, it's about $100,000 for the year, right? It's based on page views and display ads, which is, that's expensive. Even if you're a pharma company, right? That's pretty expensive. So this digital out of home, it's definitely much more, less costly. It's definitely targeted as well. It's the masses, right? So, as you and I come out of ASCO and a lot of other people, those 30,000 people are coming out of ASCO. It's a great way to stand out. It's video, so it really hacks the attention of that prospect. And I know, Kelley, you've seen this before too, and you've probably seen QR codes, right, on some of these.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's one more layer and really creates that, for a lack of an overused word, that omni-channel approach where you're literally layering in levels of impact and exposure to your customers. And I will say that McCormick Place has some really interesting areas, all different types of things that you would have believed. I was pretty taken back by the way that you can place this around McCormick Place in so many different areas.
Yeah. And as we're strategically working with our clients, we know this is like a top of the funnel, right? This is awareness. This isn't
Yeah.
direct response. And the great thing about it, if you wanted to put a QR code in there, you can kind of make a direct response. Obviously, not everybody is going to scan, the QR code that's on there, but it's a nice thing to put up there. If someone wants to learn more about your solution, right, you can educate them with that QR code. So it's definitely a tactic, maybe not for everybody, but again, if you're trying to stand out, you're trying to create that awareness, you're trying to create that like top of the funnel, that information, digital out of a home is a great way to do it. So I know we're kind of switching gears here a little bit, Kelley. I think we want to put on our video hat, right? We want to talk about the superpower of video. And I know you and I have been to many conferences working with clients, and video is one of the easiest things, at least in my mind. I know your mind too, because we do this all the time. But as you're mapping out, again, ASCO or any other conferences, your key opinion leaders are there, right, Kelley? Your
Absolutely.
KOLs are there. Your
Yeah.
customers are there.
And I will say this is probably the one thing that most companies overlook is when you have a major conference. If you have a conference where you have a lot of company leadership, you've got KOLs, you potentially even have customers there. This is a really, really cost-effective way to be able to generate a lot of content that can also be utilized for post-conference follow-up, but just good, if you can capture some customer testimonials, there's lots of different ways to do that. Product theaters, I don't know why you wouldn't want to capture a product theater. If you're paying $100,000 for the privilege to do a product theater, I know a lot of our clients love the fact that we can videotape it for them. We can even live stream it. So when you're putting already that type of money in something to like a product theater, it's a no-brainer to be able to go and then make sure you're capturing it and putting it into a nice video that you can then leverage for the rest of the year.
Yeah, agreed. 1,000%. What I love about the crew being there, again, you nailed it with the KOLs being on site, right? So I know you and I were on a call yesterday just talking and strategizing with a client about, hey, do we want to do it on the trade show floor or do we want to do it in a hospitality suite? Hey,
Yeah.
what's your preference, Kelley?
They serve two different purposes in that if you're on the exhibitor floor, you're obviously creating buzz. But one of the really nice things about the hospitality suite is that one allows a nice, quiet, nice background. We usually are able to rearrange things in the room to really make it wonderful. And then you can just schedule your KOLs, your customers, whatever throughout the day. And then your marketers or your team can also stay there. So it's a really cost-effective way to capture good content and create a very professional setting with little noise.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to us. Each client's a little bit different in how they want the style of that video. So there's definitely pros and cons to either a hospitality suite or being on the conference and trade show floor. At the end of the day, I don't think it really matters to us, but I think really the takeaway here is they're all there, right? Your key opinion leaders, subject matter experts, your leadership team, typically they're all going there. So why wouldn't you, right, capture that strategic video footage versus trying to send our crew to like 5 different customers, right? The travel costs would just be astronomical. So definitely in ASCO, and obviously we're at a lot of the other major trade shows. I put a few of the logos AACR will be at, SABCS, AUA. So just to name a few about the other conferences, but, and I'm going to send it. Oh, well, like at least if there's some interest and you want to look at different examples. So if you want to look at hospitality suite video example, if you want to look at an in booth on the trade show floor, Kelley and I are happy to send those to you. I know we want to keep this concise as possible for today's LinkedIn Live. So if you want to look at different video examples, I know, feel free to reach out to Kelley or myself. We definitely have a few different ways to do it. And one of the advantages that as I looked at this slide real quick, Kelley, is, if we're on the trade show floor, we're obviously capturing that strategic interview footage with the KOL or subject matter expert, but we also can get B-roll of the booth, right? So we can incorporate that. So it's not just all talking head. So if you're spending a lot of money, obviously on your booth, or if you've got an instrument that you want to showcase, like that's one of the advantages, obviously being on the trade show floor, is we can capture specifically that B-roll that can be incorporated right into that video as well. Moving on quickly here. I know we've been on for about 22 minutes, it looks like here. Follow-up. You mentioned this, like this is the holy grail, right? So I know we covered ground when it comes to the digital tactic, geofencing, and obviously video. We're going to get into the follow-up strategy with both of those tactics. And then the third and final piece that Kelley and I will talk about, we're going to go down the rabbit hole at a high level, talking about those MPI numbers. So if you're interested in learning more at a high level about those MPI numbers, hang on, it's coming up pretty quickly. But Kelley, I know we've got a couple different things that we're typically recommending when it comes to post-conference follow-up. When it comes to the geofencing, how does that, like, let's talk a little bit more about that 30-day post-conference follow-up.
Yeah, this is really, I think, where geofencing is probably the most important. And what's interesting is we see a lot of clients that put a lot of focus on doing, they get their booth, maybe they're sponsoring certain things, but and there's so much focus at the conference that I think many times clients are so exhausted by the time post-conference activities need to start happening that they will check the box and just send out an email to their badge scans. And it's a lost opportunity, quite frankly. One of the great things about the geofencing is the fact that you can, and the HCP one-to-one NPI targeting, is you can do a post follow-up. And what this really does is it allows our clients to kind of continue to have a dialogue. So you have certain messaging for your geofencing during the conference, but then that post-conference, it's just a really important way. And what's nice is you can actually create a bit of a lead list. And I'll let Jason go into a little more thing, but I think that's really what is one of the things that I think is really very important about geofencing. And also,
Yeah. And again, this is amplification strategy, Kelley. As we were mentioning, like clients are going to do a lot of different tactics afterwards. They're having great conversations inside the booth. So they're going to do their normal like email nurture, right sequence to your point, as you mentioned. But the geofencing is just another omni-channel approach, right? We know as marketers, it's not like a one size fits all where it's like, hey, I'm going to send this email and it's going to get read, right? And it's going to convert, right? You need to hit them up, especially if you have a new solution. Let's say this is the first time you're going to ASCO and nobody's heard about your test, nobody's seen your data, right? This is a great way to kind of stand out. But then post-conference follow-up, as we were kind of discussing, because it's got that retargeting mix in there. And, I was at a conference just a couple of weeks ago. They had a lot of brochures. A lot of people are still printing brochures, which is totally fine. I'm seeing a lot of QR codes and booths, but I was in the back of this conference and I saw several people. There was like, for whatever reason, I was just getting some work done. And there was like a dumpster in the back of the conference and they had their bags and they were just dumping their brochures in this dumpster because they just wanted the bag for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And, this is a digital way to kind of stand out versus the brochure. Most people, unfortunately, are just really just basically saying, hey, it's great to get this brochure, but I'm probably not going to read it. So the other thing we want to talk about specifically is the video components, right? So if we are capturing your product theater, if we're capturing KOLs, subject matter experts, right, you want to create that on-demand version afterwards. And a lot of times we're getting this turned around really quickly. So if you have major announcements, if you have a solution that you just mentioned and talked about at ASCO, typically we can turn it around pretty quickly, right, to create that on demand. Because not everybody, obviously we know ASCO is well attended. There's like 30,000 people, but not everybody goes, not your whole audience. So strategically using these videos by creating on-demand version afterwards, it's a great traffic driver. So let's say, for example, you have that email nurture sequence that you're setting up, and maybe you aren't thinking about how to incorporate video. This would be a great way to do that, to drive them, again, to your product theater that you spent $100,000 on. Or if you didn't do a product theater and you're just capturing customer sound bites or testimonials, right? That's a great way to drive that traffic too.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get nerdy, Kelley. Let's talk a little bit about some data. And if you haven't watched the previous 2 LinkedIn Lives, shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to include those in the comment section of this LinkedIn, in this post. So you can definitely go down the rabbit hole, learn more about it. Sean, our data guru, is going to go into that. Again, there's the previous 2 LinkedIn Lives that we talked about. I'm going to get into it, and Kelley and I are going to talk at a high level for these MPI numbers and how we can use this data specifically. And, this may sound kind of creepy, right? But as marketers, we're all kind of creepers, as I mentioned earlier. So let's say, for example, you are trying to reach those medical oncologists or oncologists maybe before ASCO, or, I know we're strategically working with clients to do this post-conference, right? So let's say you did have a major announcement or you did have some data. This actually could tie into post-conference follow-up too, this NPI numbers. And we're also using billing codes, CPT codes, ICD-10 codes. So we're using this data. It's kind of similar to the geofencing, Kelley, as we talked about, but it's more precise, it's more accurate because we're only targeting specifically those NPI numbers. And most people may know this already, but all physicians, all HCPs must have and use for financial admin. It's required by HIPAA, actually. And you could download this database. Anybody can go download this database, but where we're bridging the gap with our clients is using that data digitally. So as these physicians go online to, again, media sites, so think of it as your normal media consumption, sports, news, weather, finance, travel. So like Fortune, New York Times, Yahoo, AOL, Spotify, really any of those sites, because years ago, Kelley, I'm going to date ourselves here, but I won't say the date. So, but many years ago, when we were doing display ads and buying for clients and working with our website companies and stuff, it was just you bought individual websites, right? And then you didn't know you kind of guessed the audience, maybe weren't for sure. And then it got a little bit better where they started aggregating websites together. And now they took it like next level, right? All of a sudden now you can get that first party data and really target and be 100% precise. So to the point of this, if that MPI number isn't included in the mix of us, right? We're not going to serve an ad to them.
Yeah. What's really interesting, and you kind of touched on the fact that back in the good old days, you would literally put together a digital campaign that would be based on a bunch of sites, almost like a radio buy, a TV buy. But today, now we're targeting down to the audience level, and it's usually done through layers. So it has come so far, and I'm embarrassed to say I was one of those people selling digital advertising based on site. So it looked more like a TV or a radio campaign versus being able to now really go in with niche ways and layering. So you're layering in billing codes, you're layering in and really, really honing in on them in a way that was never possible even 5 years ago.
Yeah, and it's using the power of data. And like I said, we're not going to get a very specific, obviously we're talking about this at a high level, but if you wanted to go back, listen to Sean, he'll go much more detailed about the MPI targeting and how it works. But again, any physician, I just put up here on the screen just so people can kind of see, this is a very small sampling. Let's see, we put up here oncologists and specialties. So as we're mentioning about ASCO, obviously medical oncologists. So right now the database is about just under 5,000. But if you're planning for other conferences and you're trying to reach pediatricians, surgical oncologists, hematologists, right, urologists, radiologists, really any niche HCP, we can target them online. And then we're getting very strategic with our clients when it comes to honing in on certain territories. So we can include like layering in geo-targeting and geo-fencing as well into these numbers. But the other thing too that we're typically doing is retargeting, right? We want to put retargeting into the mix. And Kelley, I know you're familiar with it. Obviously, we get retargeted all the time.
Yeah.
What I love about the retargeting is, we're sending traffic to that prospect site. So if it's a test, if it's the data, they may not like look at that information all then, right? It's like, when most consuming people aren't like media online, like you're kind of hopping around. The great thing about retargeting is the frequency. So you're re-engaging them. Not everybody's going to convert, and not most people for physicians aren't converting anyways, right? They're just maybe learning about your solution. So the banner ads, the display banner ads, follow them online. The other thing about this, it's called programmatic. It's called display advertising, right? As marketers, we like to call things several different things, but it's definitely part of the campaigns that we're putting together, because if they saw your ad, if they clicked on your ad, they're going to be put into the retargeting pool to get those people. And typically we're running these campaigns for 30 days, Kelley, usually the retargeting.
Yep. And this is, once again, really falls into that post conference conversion goal. And it's just a really great way to change up the messaging that's more of a post conference conversion, and really making yourself stand out from the typical marketer out there that is maybe just doing an email in an inbox. This gives you can certainly do that as well, but I would suggest incorporating video and then layering this on top, being able to reach them digitally with one more impression, another exposure. So.
Absolutely. And as I was mentioning earlier, and we talked about, and this is where clients start drooling, is the reporting, right? So the reporting is great because we've got that data up front. And so every single month we're sharing the data with our clients, right? To say, hey, let's say you're targeting, those medical oncologists. Let's say, for example, the report comes back, and just as an example, let's say there's 100 oncologists that saw the ad, maybe clicked on it. The great thing about the reporting, and I want to put it up here on the screen, we can get very specific. And again, this is why clients are drooling, because it's like a lead report, right? So what happens is we've got the MPI number, and I know the screen is really teeny tiny and you can't see this up there. We're happy to send you an example. Feel free to reach out to Kelley or myself, but we got first name, we've got last name, we've got that MPI number, which really isn't that actionable of data, but we've got the physical address, right? And if there's a hospital affiliation, and then again, we've got the first name, last name. So what happens most of the time, our marketing contacts are sharing this with the VP of sales. Then the VP of sales is really uploading this to like a CRM, like Salesforce or HubSpot. And then if you have a large sales team or even a small sales team, it doesn't really matter. Like this report shows who saw your ad, who clicked on your ad. So as a marketer, Kelley, like who wouldn't want this, right?
Absolutely. And, following back up with other tactics like email to this list is a really great way. We can go back and match to their email address. It's not a 100% match. It's only to be a percentage, but it gives you a really good warm lead list for your sales.
Yeah. And I'm going to put this up on the screen. Again, I know it's pretty small. You probably can't see it. Again, feel free to hit Kelley up or I after this LinkedIn Live and we can send some of this into you. But this is like the fields of the spreadsheet. So you got the MPI number, you got first name, last name, address, title, specialty. Really, that's a hospital affiliation. Those are really the actionable information. So let's say you have a new solution or you've got a fully commercialized solution. Like this report goes back to that, whatever it's been like 30 some minutes ago, Kelley, where we talked about what are the current challenges in reaching medical oncologists? Well, the sales team is having, more challenges now than ever to actually get in and talk to the physician. Well, let's say if you had that data, like how would that change your sales approach, right? To get a list every single month to say, hey, these are the actual physicians that, again, saw your ad, most physicians maybe aren't filling out forms online because they're just learning about your solution, right? So it would be great for the sales team to know this information ahead of time that, hey, this list of people, they either went back to the website or they saw the ad, right? I wonder, if, as you're planning this out with our clients, like it's just such a big deal to get these reports every single month.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's the report. The other great thing about the MPI targeting from a campaign level and a report level, so we're talking about like the impressions, the clicks, the click-through rate, the cost per click, obviously, that's transparent. We send that to clients every single month. We optimize based on what's driving the best. And every client's a little bit different in their KPIs. And I know Sean talked a lot about KPIs at the two previous LinkedIn Live. So if you want to learn more about the KPIs and how you can track some of this, like I just would highly recommend going back and checking that out. But when you're running these digital campaigns, like it's digital, right, Kelley? So we can get the reporting, we can show that to you every single month. And Sean and his team does amazing job to optimize these things, right? So we're looking at the creative, we're looking at like where the traffic's being driven to the landing page or website, right? Are the metrics on that landing page, are they spot on for what we're trying to do from a KPI perspective? We're looking at the cost per click. So again, that's the beautiful thing about digital, right? We can track all this.
Yeah, I love the fact that you have somebody who clicks on it and then you can go back and that's a warm lead. I would rather want to start engaging with somebody who indeed clicked on my ad because I know there's interest there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we have a creative in-house team as well, obviously. So we work with clients. Some clients send us like a static image of what they want. So again, if it's like a announcement, if it's a new solution, if it's a new test, if it's data, we look at that information. Our creative team typically we resize those ads that clients send to us because, as I was mentioning earlier, most people, this is cross device. So Kelley, I know I have 4 screens, as I mentioned. You probably have 3 or 4 as well. So we resize the ads based on the different screen sizes, right? So if it's mobile, desktop, laptop, obviously. So we're changing those sizes, and then we're doing animation to these. So the best way to think of it, the technical term for this is HTML coding. Not that you need to remember that, but basically it's a fancy term for, the text pops in, the image pops in, right? It's a great way to hack the attention of your prospect because when we're running these ads across all those different lifestyle sites, as I was mentioning, like you want to stand out, right? You want to hack the attention of your prospect. So usually static ads typically aren't getting the best, as good as results as those ones that I was mentioning that has motion, the text is popping in. Or the other great thing about this NPI targeting as well, and I didn't really mention it, but I'll mention it here, we can do video creative too. So as we were mentioning, if you're capturing strategic video interviews, testimonials at ASCO or any other major trade shows, we can incorporate this into, it's called a pre-roll ad, right? So it's, let's say, for example, you're trying to get highlights of one of the games, one of the sports games or the stock market, right? It's like breaking news. This pre-roll video ad shows up before the ad you want to see or the content that you want to see actually. So it's like a 15-second spot. It's really quick. Again, it's a way to stand out and hack the attention. I just wanted to mention that it kind of popped into my head there. And then, here's some examples too up here on the screen. So this is, you can see up in the top left corner. Again, I know it's really small. We can send this to you if you've got some interest in looking at this more closely. These are the different ad sizes for mobile versus desktop. And again, to create something that's really important, Kelley, but you also want to think of it as, we get this a lot of times too, where it's like, hey, we want to put a lot of information right on this ad so we stand out. And that's where we really push back on a lot of clients, right, Kelley? Because it's like, what do we usually say to clients? Like, it's like smaller is better, or what are we typically saying in that when it comes to these banner ads?
I think it's less is more, but actually what it is animation and motion is really important here. And it's better to be able to create a very strategic light text and more emotion to be able to communicate what you're trying to communicate. And also what we like about this is it's really creating a dialogue, especially when we're talking about using NPI targeting pre-conference, also using geofencing during the conference and then post. And you really want to think about an unfolding dialogue and bringing that prospect across that journey and changing the messaging up based on the time that you're marketing to them.
Yeah, typically we're running these campaigns for a year, but to your point, it's not the same creative like for the whole year, right? So what we're doing is we're looking at conferences, we're looking at product launches, we're looking at when they're releasing data to put that information in that banner ad. Another way to think of the banner ad, it's like a billboard, right? So when you're driving down the road, you see those billboards, it's limited text, there's maybe an
Mhm.
image, and then there's a call to action, right? We want to just pique the interest. We want to have that aha moment on that banner ad. So they're like, yeah, let me click on that. That sounds kind of interesting, right? Or, you want to put on there something that's going to appeal to them. So they want to, again, we want them to drive them back to the landing page or website. So that CTA is important. But again, you can't put everything in that ad. And Kelley, I know we're kind of winding down. So specifically for ASCO, or if you're watching this and maybe ASCO is not the most important conference for you and you've got other conferences, or maybe you're planning for ASCO, maybe even for next year, right? We're typically working with clients throughout the year for every single conference to really maximize. So if there's some interest, Kelley, like what are typically next steps for clients or somebody maybe that hasn't worked with us before?
Yeah, what we typically do is we'll set up a discovery call, and we're really going to want to dig into what conferences are important, because not all conferences are the same as it relates to how important they are to a particular marketer. And then we're going to want to dig in and know um, what is going on, what type of marketing have you already invested in, that we can maybe go in and find those opportunities to really amplify and help really elevate you in that particular area. So once again, really understanding what are the important conferences, what do you have going on there, who's going to be attending, what type of sponsorships are you doing, and we will go back and then create a strategy or a plan. And also, we also want to talk a lot about what your goals are post conference. How many leads are you looking to try to convert? What does that look like? So we can kind of bring it all together in a cohesive strategy, both video and digital, aligned with your goals for that particular conference.
Yeah, spot on. And typically, what we're doing is depending on the conference when it is. I mean, some clients we're speaking with and strategizing 120 days before, right? Because they're thinking about it to warm up the audience.
Mhm.
I know with ASCO fast approaching, that strategy, just we don't have time for that right now. But what we're doing, the conversations that we are having is a lot of post conference stuff.
Yeah.
So even if you have an announcement at ASCO or any other major trade show, obviously AACR's conference that's coming up here in the next few weeks. Post conference, again, as you mentioned, Kelley, like that's the holy grail. Like, how do we influence these people either before the conference or even after the conference? So, obviously, geofencing is something you can't really do after the conference other than the 30-day retargeting. But strategically, for the NPI targeting, you can do that before, during, after, and really anytime throughout the year. Right,
Yeah.
Kelley?
Yep, absolutely. And we have a lot of discussion around how do we integrate the sellers' influence in this. So not all sellers can go to these conferences, but we really want to understand what are you currently doing, and how do we integrate engagement with the sellers to be able to get closer to a conversion.
Yep. Kelley, I think that's it. I know we're right at 43 minutes. I know Duvani, our marketing specialist, dropped in the comments the previous two LinkedIn lives that Sean goes down the rabbit hole specifically more about the NPI. So if you want to learn more about the NPI targeting, billing codes, anything really data centric, Sean in that LinkedIn live will help you. But if you're mapping out any other conferences, trade shows, again, I know this was focused on ASCO, but if there's any other major conferences that you're planning for, feel free to reach out to Kelley or myself. Really, we just wanted to be educational in this information. We think it as very strategic, obviously, Kelley. So like conferences are just one of the things that probably, I don't know, every client of ours goes to. So we're always trying to maximize ways that we can effectively move the needle
Yeah.
for their business. Any other last thoughts, Kelley, as we wrap here?
Just we know conferences are a really great way to drive conversion, but so often we see marketers just checking the box, partially because many times they're doing more with less and are a bit overwhelmed, especially when you have a conference or an event like ASCO. It's very daunting, but most of our clients are already spending quite a bit of money, a lot of money invested in not only renting and being there with a booth, product theaters, flying out all of your sales and marketing people. So it makes sense to really take a much more strategic approach to really make an impact versus just checking a box.
Absolutely. And if anybody has questions on any of the tactics, strategies, videos, feel free to reach out to Kelley or myself. We're obviously on LinkedIn. Or if you have our email address, feel free to hit us up via email. But as you plan out conferences for the rest of this year, or even into next year, hopefully these strategies help drive the best results for you. So thanks for tuning in. And if you just were on for a little bit and watching it and wanted to come back, the great thing about LinkedIn is this LinkedIn Live is available. So you would just use that same URL to join, and you can get available access to this LinkedIn Live anytime. So again, thanks for everyone for joining. Bye for now.
Bye.